You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. Well guys, it's been a while since I last made a Borderlands video that wasn't a countdown, top 10, or some other type of list. But today, I figured I'd talk about Borderlands 1 and some theories as to why we haven't seen a remaster, remake, or even a simple port of the PC version to PS4 and Xbox One. And yes, I do know about Xbox One backwards compatibility for Borderlands 1, but I would say that doesn't count because it's essentially the Xbox 360 version of the game. Before I start, I feel like I should let you guys know that this video will contain some speculation. I say this because I don't have specific definitive proof of everything I'm going to be talking about in this video. I'm also going to be citing Vgchartz as a reference for sales numbers, and you may or may not think that they are 100% reliable. However, I think my speculation is reasonable, and you may agree with some of my conclusions. But with all of that out of the way, let's talk about why we haven't seen a Borderlands 1 remaster. This is an interesting topic because it seems like Gearbox has either been remaking or re-releasing remastered versions of games like Bulletstorm, Duke Nukem 3D, and the Homeworld Remastered Collection. You would think that Borderlands 1 would be a perfect candidate to be remastered, especially since it was Gearbox's big game during the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era. Whether they did a remake or overhaul of the graphics, or even if they just ported the game with some fixes to new hardware, it's bizarre that Gearbox hasn't done this with Borderlands 1 yet, especially since a lot of people might like to play the game that started it all. I think one of the big reasons we haven't seen a Borderlands 1 remaster is because game sales for the Borderlands franchise are down from what we saw during the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era. For this generation of consoles in particular, sales of the Handsome Collection haven't been particularly great. According to Vgchartz, the PS4 version has sold 0.85 million units worldwide, and the Xbox One version has sold 0.41 million units worldwide. This should bring your total to about 1.26 million copies worldwide for both platforms. 1 million copies of anything is a lot, but keep in mind that's between both platforms. A successful console game usually sells more than 1 million units on each individual platform. To put the Handsome Collection sales numbers in perspective, Borderlands 2 sold 3.05 million copies worldwide on the Xbox 360 alone. Borderlands 2 sold 2.23 million on the PlayStation 3, the PC version was 0.92 million, and the Vita version was 0.64 million. This should bring us to a total sales number of 6.84 million units sold worldwide across all platforms for Borderlands 2. Borderlands 1 sold 3.43 million units on Xbox 360, 2.09 million on PlayStation 3, and 0.18 million on the PC. This should bring our total sales of Borderlands 1 to 5.7 million units worldwide across all platforms. Now, both Borderlands 1 and 2 sold pretty well, so how did the pre-sequel go? Well, the pre-sequel sold 0.72 million units on 360, 0.61 million units on PS3, and 0.29 million on PC. And this would bring total sales of the pre-sequel to 1.62 million units worldwide. This doesn't include the Handsome Collection. But just to recap, Borderlands 1 sold 5.7 million worldwide, Borderlands 2 sold 6.84 million worldwide, the pre-sequel sold 1.62 million worldwide, and the Handsome Collection sold the worst at 1.26 million units worldwide. As you can see, this is a downtrend. Based on this data, you've got to wonder how much a Borderlands 1 remaster or remake would sell right now. Typically, remasters don't sell as well as the original. Even in the case of a game like The Last of Us, the PS4 version sold 4.55 million units, while the original PS3 version sold more at 5.87 million units. More often than not, remasters sell 1/5 or less units than the game they're based on. In my estimation, a Borderlands 1 remaster would sell 1.14 million units at the most. This may trend lower as 2K's recently released Bioshock collection sold 0.46 million units across all platforms worldwide. Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite on the Xbox 360 alone sold a combined 6.96 million units. Again, the point is that Borderlands sales seem to be in decline. Keep in mind, too, that there is significantly more competition in the looter-shooter market. Not only would Borderlands be competing with Destiny, but it's also competing with The Division as well. A fair argument would be that the pre-sequel sales sucked because it was released on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 after the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out. If trends with Destiny are any indication, it would have been wise of 2K, 2K Australia, and Gearbox Software to release PS4 and Xbox One versions of Borderlands the pre-sequel, separate from the Handsome Collection. Why they didn't do this on the PS4 and Xbox One versions, like Destiny did, who knows? Regardless, the numbers don't lie, and it would be difficult for someone to pitch a Borderlands 1 remaster due to low sales of both the pre-sequel and the Handsome Collection. While you could certainly argue that the pre-sequel's launch was crippled because it didn't release on the new consoles, I think what is done is done. If you ask me, the Borderlands community was at its peak in about 2012 or 2013, before the next generation consoles came out. Since then, Borderlands titles haven't done particularly well, and while the Handsome Collection sold better than Battleborn, things aren't looking too good for Borderlands. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Gearbox does seem to be re-releasing or remastering older games for the current console hardware. The question is, why are they doing this? Well, my response would be, why does anyone want to become a publisher? After all, the biggest thing would be creative control over your own projects. Remember that while Gearbox Software develops the Borderlands games, 2K has a significant say in how the product is developed. After all, it's fair to suggest that 2K is probably paying for a portion of the total development and marketing costs. There's also the issue of money. Assuming you developed and published a game yourself, you will earn more money than you would have if you had gone with a publisher. In Gearbox's case, they're mostly acquiring IPs that were considered to be really good games when they first came out. Homeworld was a very popular space combat RTS in the late 90s and early 2000s. Duke Nukem 3D was one of the best first-person shooters of the mid to late 90s, and Bulletstorm was a critically acclaimed game that came out about 5 years ago, but didn't sell particularly well. All of these are good games and make perfect candidates for remasters or re-releases. Gearbox doesn't have to do much if any work on development because all of these games are already done. At the very least, they will need to update these games to support higher resolutions and then optimize them somewhat for the newer console and PC hardware. Now, based on what I just said, it seems like a Borderlands 1 port to next-gen systems is a no-brainer. The costs for Gearbox to do it would be pretty low, and all they would have to do is create optimizations for the console and PC versions. I think the issue is that Gearbox doesn't 100% own the Borderlands franchise and isn't able to make all of the creative as well as business decisions. You add that to the fact that Borderlands game sales appear to be down across the board, and you've got a couple hurdles before a Borderlands 1 Remastered can happen. It's also probably time that we talk about Battleborn. Gearbox's Battleborn has currently sold about 0.44 million units worldwide across all platforms, according to Vgchartz. To say the least, Battleborn was unsuccessful, and according to Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick, and I quote, "While the game launched to solid reviews, its performance in the market has been below our expectations. We think there remains an opportunity to grow the audience for this unique experience over time, and 2K will continue to drive engagement and recurrent consumer spending on the title through add-on content and virtual currency." Now, initially, sales for Battleborn were decent. However, the release of Overwatch broke all of Battleborn's momentum. While both games aren't exactly the same, they are similar. I think it's fair to say that 2K Games had a lot of confidence in Gearbox Software following the release of both Borderlands 1 and especially Borderlands 2, which became 2K Games' highest-selling title ever. Because Gearbox had a very positive relationship with 2K, 2K decided to back Battleborn. When Battleborn didn't meet sales expectations, I think it's fair to suggest that it negatively affected Gearbox's relationship with 2K, and it isn't as cozy as it once was. Keep in mind that that is speculation. If you are a game developer that asked for a significant amount of money from a publisher to develop a game and that game flops, you become more of a risk for that publisher and they are less likely to give you more money in the future. Because Battleborn didn't meet sales expectations, that means Gearbox will probably receive less money from 2K when they work on future Borderlands projects. This may be a reason why Gearbox is getting into self-publishing more games. 2K may simply not be giving them enough money to work on the next Borderlands, so they have to make up for that with the money they make on their own self-published titles. It's certainly grim, but I think in a certain way it's safe to say that Battleborn's failure will affect Borderlands going forward and will determine future releases in the franchise. You add that to the fact that Borderlands doesn't appear to be selling as well, and the fact that Gearbox doesn't have 100% control over the Borderlands IP, and it's just one more hurdle to add before a Borderlands 1 Remastered can happen. But who knows, guys? This is all speculation. I could be totally wrong, and Gearbox announces a Borderlands 1 remake tomorrow, or later on some point next year. It would certainly be a welcome surprise, and I'd like to see the original game updated with better visuals and graphics. Even if Borderlands 1 Remaster doesn't ever happen, I do think a Borderlands 3 will probably come out at some point. But that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.